friends. It is Ask a Flower Farmer today. It is your friend in flowers, Lisa Mason Ziegler, and I am so grateful to be inside. I just ran around the farm from building to building, and the wind is like blowing a gale out there. So I don't know if it's windy where you are, but I hope it's blowing in some better weather. So we're pretty warm here in southeastern Virginia. We're up in the 50s, kind of a nice reprieve. And so things are looking brighter here after being in some deep cold. So welcome everybody. If you have never joined me before here, Ask a Flower Farmer is all about answering your questions if I can. And if you'd like to ask me a question, just post it in that bubble that's got the question mark down at the bottom of the screen. And that way your question doesn't just sail away as names are streaming by. And so super glad to be here with you guys today. And I have a little bit of stuff to tell you about while we're waiting for folks to get questions posted. I mean, you can ask questions about cool flowers, seed starting, flower farming business. I'll do my best to answer whatever you've got, but just post it in the bubble with the question mark. So first out of the gate, because I do not want to forget to tell you guys that, I don't know if you all knew that I have a private membership. It's called the Flower Farmer Club. And we haven't talked much about it. We've spent about a year developing it. It's been going on since this time last year. And it's really grown into an incredibly special place. And so it's open right now, but the membership is going to close this Friday, January 31st, meaning you can't join. And you can comment here, Peek, P-E-E-K, which will then DM you the link to have a little look at some of the resources in there. Why is this place so special? First off, it's focused on flower farmers and flower farming. That means growing flowers and selling flowers and everything related. I drop in there once a month, a new master class. There's a meetup once a month where I do a mini training and answer all the questions, none left unanswered. I do a weekly meetup, which is, by the way, club members that are here, that happens at 2 o'clock on Wednesdays. It's called the Sowing Circle. I typically am sowing some kind of seed, and people oftentimes are doing the very same thing that are joining me. And we yammer on about something. Then we have the Bloomcast, which is a private podcast that I make just for my members. But friends, the best part of it, there's a network in there. It works just like Facebook. There's a community board. It's not in Facebook. And it is an amazing place to be supported, to ask questions, to network with other growers. And it's pretty amazing. We had our meetup this past Monday night. And it was awesome. It's like to be able to talk about seed starting in real time when it's actually going on. It's just really great. Anyway, if you're interested, comment Peek here, and that'll DM you the link to watch. I think it's my masterclass from January, which was about advertising. It was me interviewing our advertising agency, literally, giving you great tips and information, and a couple other resources. But check that out, because when we close the doors on Friday, January 31st at midnight, that means we weren't taking on any new members. That's just really going to allow me to 100% focus on the club. I don't know if y'all have noticed that I'm not quite as present here on social media and doing as many how-tos, and that's why I'm over in the club doing that. And if that's kind of stuff that interests you, would love for you to be over there, to be part of our community, have all the resources you have at your fingertips. But check that out. So comment Peek if you want to get that. All right, so we got some questions now, so let's take a look. Our cold hardy annuals grow in part shade over fall and winter, but full sun come March until the end of September. I'm nervous about, where'd it go? Wait a minute, it's not showing me the rest. I'm so nervous about it. Why won't it show me that? Let me end that message and then go in and look. Wait a minute, I'm not finished. Here it is. Our cold hardy annuals grow in part shade over fall and winter, but full sun come March until end of September. I'm so nervous about it, hoping it's okay. Oh, they should be fine. I mean, almost all of the cut flowers that we grow, of course, prefer full sun. The more sun they can get, the better. The problems that you'll experience from low light when you're growing flowers is they won't be as productive, and they stretch, and they just don't thrive. So you'll be able to tell, and so that would be a goal, to be able to get them into more sun. So you don't know until you try this stuff. So you did the job by planting. Hi, I'm in zone 10A. My last frost is January 27th, which was 2 days ago. Early this month, I winter sow bells of Ireland, lupins, poppies, yarrow. Will they even make it to flower before it gets hot in April? That's really hard to say, because most of those things we actually fall plant, which you definitely should do. I have never practiced winter sowing, but my take on it, I mean, I've seen a lot of it, is there's just a lot of extra steps. We literally either plant seeds or transplants in the fall in the ground, so the plants are getting established during winter. And if where you are in 10A, you can plant everything in the fall. So you get a frost. I didn't even know you got frosts in 10A. So that would be my recommendation to you, for the very reason that you're wondering. Are they going to have time to get established and to get well rooted in, and then to be able to perform and grow stems? Fall planted, most likely, because that's the point. They get established long before it's time to do that. So, you never know these things until you try them, y'all. So that would be my thought on that, is to consider doing some fall planting next year. Hi, Lisa. I'm in zone 6B now, zone 7 in Massachusetts. What are your thoughts and tips for eucalyptus? I purchased your seeds and grow fine plugs, but getting them big like yours, I've never achieved. So the reality is that eucalyptus is from Australia, where it's hot, I don't have firsthand experience growing eucalyptus up in the north. Maybe there's just not enough heat, unless they were grown in a hoop or a greenhouse, for you to get that actual size. I mean, that's, I don't know if you saw I posted a video today of some silver dollar, and that was first year. But the game that we play is that we get the seed started. So I have the biggest transplants possible ready to go in the ground the day that my last frost passes. Then we hoop and cover them with lightweight row cover to heat it up, to get them going, and I even leave them covered longer than I would most of the other warm season tender annuals. But I don't know what your temperatures are like during the summer, but it's the warm up that really gets them to grow. And then of course, our big harvest is in September and October, which I'm sure you're probably cold by then. So your season is so short. For the best eucalyptus, you may need cover, meaning a hoop or, a hoop house. Or you just grow more of it and it doesn't get as big, You have to just kind of weigh that. I think it's definitely worth it, because eucalyptus seems to be always in vogue, right? Well, hello, Kim. Kim's one of my club members. What are you asking here, Kim? Some of my snapdragons look rough after last week's cold temperatures, even though I covered them. Like you, we get hot fast. Do I still have time to start more seeds? That's a great question, Kim. Funny enough, today, Bobo's here today. Normally, she doesn't come to work unless we have a date, like to start seeds or something. Because we are replanting some stuff and restarting some seeds. So you're in 8A, you're the same as me. It's pushing the envelope. First off, I mean, it's which sword do you fall on? If you start snapdragons from group 1 or 2, which is like chantillies and I think madam butterflies and those that bloom early, it's kind of probably too late for them, right? Because they don't have time to get started, get big enough, get planted in the garden, get established, and they'll be blooming. They'll bloom short, right? Some of the later group 3 and 4 varieties, Rocket, I can't remember if it's Potomac or Maryland. I forget which variety it is. One of those groups, you might have a better chance, but we find that snaps growing that late in the season, they'll bloom, but they're just very disease and pest susceptible. So maybe you should skip the snaps. That's what I kind of decide to do sometimes. Instead of trying to run behind and do something late, it's like, all right, lesson learned. Next year I'm gonna XYZ, whatever your solution is, so this doesn't happen next year. And if you do it, Kim, don't start a bunch. Just do a test, right? Maybe like 40 plants or something. So Bobo's here today is what I was getting around to, sorry. Actually doing some plugging in. We have some transplants here available for her to plant. She took the covers down and is doing some watering. I was just very surprised, frankly. We uncovered our beds to have a look to see what's alive, what's dead after the craziness. And I couldn't believe how dry the soil was. I was really afraid it was going to be soggy. And so she's watering literally today with a wand, using a hose, so it's not in the irrigation to freeze. But yeah, I totally get it. Is the planting date for warm season annuals 6 to 8 weeks after the frost date? No, it is not. So that's a good question. And I so understand why it is so confusing about figuring out the best time to plant the warm season annuals and the cool season annuals for individual people. And that was our driving force. My book, the Cut Flower Handbook, y'all, the first 2 sections, the first section really helps you nail down your windows, the best time to plant. There's actually a place to write your dates right in the book. It is so important to learn that for your garden and then how to intertwine warm season and cool season together. I mean, that's the secret sauce of amazing succession planting. So for warm season tender annuals, typically, so mine is mid-April. April 15th is my last expected frost. Depends on what you're going to do and what you're planting. But in general, if you're going to just plant transplants out in your garden, we typically, without doing hoops and covers and all that mess, we say usually wait 2 weeks after your last expected frost. And that 2 weeks allows the soil to start warming up. If you plant warm season annuals into cool soil, they just sit out there and shiver and fall victim to disease and just get puny in general, right? So actually it's 2 weeks after your last frost date. And that is for transplants. If you're going to try to direct sow warm season, we say wait 4 to 6 weeks because you have to wait for the soil to really get warm for them to actually sprout. My stock is very yellow. When I took covers off after the cold spell, I'm in zone 8A, more water. I have more plugs coming in a couple of weeks if these are toast. First off, we don't plant stock. I'm in 8A also. We plant stock in very early spring, not in the fall or winter. And so ours gets planted between mid-February to March 1st, and we have it all started to plant then. Yellowing can be a sign of disease or lack of water or poor drainage. So there's a lot of choices there. So you have to really judge, is the soil dry? Has it been dry? Is it staying dry? That might answer that question. It could be nutrition, although we tend to not fertilize anything in the dead of winter. So I would definitely plant your plugs that are coming maybe in a different spot. But you have to do a little recon on that and figure out, is your soil dry? If it is, then maybe you do need to water. I planted my yarrow transplants pretty late this year, early December in central North Carolina. We had a cold December and January. They look rough, no top growth. But if I tug a little, it feels like roots are established. What do you think? Should I start more seeds? That's a really great question. And I'll tell you, because when Bobo and I were walking around the garden this morning, I was bending over, looking, pulling, covering, uncovering stuff with leaves. It's really impossible to get a read on is a plant dead or alive this time of the year. A reliable read. I don't pull anything at this time of the year, but your idea of starting seeds, again, we call those insurance seedlings. If you think they're dead, start more seeds. What's the worst thing that can happen? You don't have room to plant them because guess what? Your plants aren't dead. Then you just compost them and move on. It's worth the insurance backup. It's kind of like, how often do we really need a seatbelt? You don't until you do, right? Same thing. So we start stuff. Bobo and I realized this morning, we have restarted so many seeds that they're perfectly fine out there, y'all. That's a whole topic in itself, right? We're the ones that get all worked up about stuff dying, cool flowers dying. The plants are fine, it's us. So I would start them if you're in doubt, and you may not have to plant them because you cannot make a call this time of the year. I'm in zone 8B in North Carolina. I just checked my straw flower and they look great. And the tops of others are gone. I still see green on the bits that are left. Do you think they'll come back or should I start some more? I think you need to follow the same thing I just said. And, we haven't even planted you're a little bit warmer than me. We haven't planted our straw flowers yet. Straw flowers in stock, I only plant in very early spring. And if you see any green, I would say there's a good chance they're coming back. But why not start backup plants? If you're a flower farmer, if you're a commercial grower with a business, you can't afford to not have specific plants. Straw flowers for us are huge, as yarrow is. So start your insurance plants is what I call them. And if you have to pitch them, oh well. Put them in your compost heap and, you'll sleep better now knowing if they're dead. You have something to plug in, right? So Bobo and I were just talking about that. So we're really like a little bit over 2 weeks away from when our very early spring planting window is, which is February, Valentine's Day to March 1st, basically. And her watering well today, and we'll put the covers back up. We're leaving them uncovered to get some rain on Friday. But in a couple of weeks, we're hoping to see either deader plants or more alive plants. Whether that'll happen or not totally depends on the weather. So y'all, this is the time of year you just can't make calls. You just have to do things and roll the dice, So that's what I would do. Always start more. Which varieties of stock do you recommend for a warmer climate? So it's more like the varieties of stock that we grow because we grow outside. We don't have any hooper greenhouses here. And you're always looking to grow the tallest varieties because the problem of growing them outdoors versus in a hoop house is they're just shorter. That's just the way it works, y'all. Don't ask me why we're penalized. But anyway, so my number one variety is Cheerful. Doesn't have a bunch of different colors, but it is the tallest. And you'll find that on our website. I know it comes in white. I'm not sure if they call it yellow, but it's actually ivory. It's not like this yellow. And then we also grow cats. And both of those do really well. And I have grown all the different varieties. I grew, I forget the name of it, begins with a Q. They were just kind of short. But it's all about timing of when you plant them. They need to be planted during the very early spring window, which is 6 to 8 weeks. I actually plant them 8 weeks before my last spring frost. So that's one of the very first. I bet we have 7 trays of every color of stock growing in our grow room, and our goal is to get them. They're the first ones planted in mid-February. They love it cold. The minute it starts to heat up outside, they stay short. So you got to get them planted on time. Nice size little transplants too. Thank you. I'll cover them as soon as I plant. Oh, good idea. What gardening Neton do you use? Well, we sell it on my website, the same stuff that I use at thegardenersworkshop.com. You will find it in all sizes. It's all 36 inches wide. It's easy to cut down. We actually cut one row off because our beds are 30 inches, but it comes in 20, 50, 100, maybe not 100, 328, and then in a long roll of 3,280 feet. So we have it all over at thegardenersworkshop.com, and you can actually comment shop here, S-H-O-P, and that'll DM you a link straight to our website. For a brand new cut flower bed that has been a meadow and long neglected, what is the best way to prepare for spring planting, soil health-wise, tarp area to die off, remove the compost on top in spring? Well, you don't have time to prepare the bed for spring by using a tarp. Tarps take time and heat to kill whatever is under it, whether that be weed seeds or actual vegetation. So you can't really do that for spring planting. So I'll tell you, this is our method of madness here. The block of beds that we spring plant, we do one of two things. It does not have cover crop on it because, again, there's not time in spring to extinguish the cover crop and have it digest or do whatever you're going to do in time to get those spring crop, that first warm season planting in. So what we do is either cover that area with a silage tarp to keep it dryish throughout the winter. Then we pull the tarp back and we'll put a couple loads of compost on there, put general purpose fertilizer, which you'll find that over on my website also, thegardenersworkshop.com, according to the instructions, which is basically like 7.5 cups per 100 square feet, which is like 3 pounds of product, and till it and make our beds. And so silage tarps are great to use in summer to kill what's underneath of it, but you have to give it like 8 weeks or more actually to be able to do that. So I would say incorporating compost, some general purpose fertilizer, and then be sure to do a soil test this summer so you can make any corrections that it need, if any, next fall, and go from there. And then mulch the bed. We use biodegradable film that looks like plastic and works like plastic, but it is biodegradable and compostable, and that just suppresses so many weed seeds. And you'll find all that over at thegardenersworkshop.com, as well as my book, The Cut Flower Handbook, which really helps you on the soil prepping area. So let's see, will feverfew bloom all summer? Not typically. Feverfew is one of those flash crops. We grow 6 different varieties. I fall plant it, we very early spring plant it, and then we plant it again, usually in 4 to 6 weeks, to extend our bloom season, because it's not a good repeat bloomer. I mean, it'll give you a bunch of stems, but they all come on in one couple of weeks, and then they're pretty much done. And we just have found that replanting successions is far more productive than trying to squeeze some additional stems out of those previous, because you have to give them so much time. So yeah, that's definitely a succession planter. Thoughts on plant tone granular fertilizer? I'm sorry, I am not familiar with that. Is there a certain fertilizer you recommend for garden roses? I also read to plant garlic and onions with them to deter pests. So I think that for garden roses, I don't grow garden roses. I would definitely try to find a garden rose group or a website or somewhere. I bet if you just search engine that, what is the best fertilizer for garden roses. and go to people. Don't go to necessarily companies or to universities, EDUs, where it says .com. If it says .edu or .org, those are your people. Those are people that are practicing usually, and that might be your best go-to place. And garlic and onions definitely deter some pests. However, they can attract others like thrips, which is definitely a rose pest, but thrips love onions in my experience. You're welcome. Will I see more germination? Will I see more germination after I have moved the 50% from the heat to grow lights? Yes, so that's the whole point. So she's talking about sprouting seeds on a seedling heat mat. And we recommend that you move the tray from the heat mat over to your grow light when you see life in 50% of the seeds, meaning they're starting to crack. The reason you're doing that is when 50% or so have started to crack, that means the heat has pretty much done its job. But more importantly, those that are cracking, you do not want those little seedlings to start stretching for light, and they do it within a couple hours, y'all. It is really so fascinating to me how quick that happens. When we bring plants out of the grow room that are under grow lights over here to where the set is for the show we do on Friday, the live shopping show where we show all that kind of stuff, I'm telling you, within a couple of hours, those seedlings are already bending because they're not under the grow light in there. So I just bring them out later now. But that's why you move them from the heat to the grow light at that kind of point. You want to provide the light for those that have cracked, but the heat has already pretty much done its job, as well as your room should be a little warm that will continue that sprouting for those that actually may not have cracked yet that you can actually see. My fall planting of bells of Ireland hasn't been very successful. I want to add more and have more seeds in the freezer. Should I direct sow or seed indoors to transplant later? Middle Tennessee has a week of 50s and 60s this week. So talking from firsthand experience, sowing them now isn't very successful. I tried it myself, just out of curiosity. There's no question that where you are for this fall, direct sowing out in the field in the fall is the hands down best way. That is why I oversow so much, plant so many more seeds than I think I need to, because we definitely want a strong stand of bells of Ireland. I have not had success starting bells indoors, and you can certainly try it. To sow seeds out in the garden, there's just not enough warmth to get them to sprout, maybe this week, but then it gets cold again and they just stall out. And if they stall at a certain point in the cracking, that'll abort them. So you can try it. I did. Bobo and I said, oh yeah, and be sure to water this dirt over here, because I did plant more bells of Ireland seed. It was actually like a week like this, like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And there's nothing out there. And if anything sprouts, I will be surprised. But I have backup plants, not of bells of Ireland, but of something else. Our bells from fall looks okay, but it's not as strong as I want. And we just did not plant as heavily. I'm telling you, seeds are the cheapest piece of this whole pie. I always oversow bells. Anyway, sorry, I don't have better news for you, but that's my experience. My fall hardy plants have been under snow for 3 weeks, 50 degrees here in Texas. Well, they're probably just so happy underneath there. Snow is the best insulator there is. And if it's 50 degrees, that means they're getting some water because it's starting to melt. So you've probably got some very, very happy, cool flowers. All right, one last question. This is interesting. I had a local farmer deny my volunteer request to help get some field experience. Most people tell me I should grow what I know where I am. What tips besides volunteering would you suggest as a basic guide to help me grow my flower garden? Any podcasts? So first off, for profit business, which is any business that's not a nonprofit, it is actually against the labor law for us to have volunteers. And a lot of people didn't know that. I didn't know that. But it is. It is literally against the labor law. But that's not why most farmers deny volunteers. It's all about insurance. Insurance it either covers employees, it covers customers potentially, and it covers you. But volunteers fall in a very gray area, and that's not an area that most people are willing to risk their home over. So I understand why that is that way. If you're trying to become a flower grower, you need to get a job on a flower farm. Apply for a part-time job somewhere. That is pretty much, most people tell me I should grow what I know where I am, our sister podcast, Seed Talk, which is Lane and I host that, would be a great one. Lane's a gardener, I'm a farmer, and we talk about all kinds of stuff on there. You can find it on all your podcast apps, as well as over on our website. You need to follow along with us here. While I am a flower farmer, everything I do outdoors in a garden. So everything I do can be applied whether you have a 3x10 garden in your backyard or if you have an acre. So you can certainly travel along with that. I also have a podcast called Field and Garden. Oftentimes that talks a lot more about business, flower farming business, and everything related to that. But I would check those out. All of my books, the Cut Flower Handbook, which is totally all-inclusive, is for gardeners and farmers. It actually has a gardener tip and a farmer tip on each one of the 66 flowers. Cool flowers you'll learn a lot from, and Vegetables Love Flowers. Vegetables Love Flowers is really about my philosophy of gardening and farming. And so that may help you too. So that's where I would start. And if you really want to become a flower farmer, then you just need to apply for a job on a flower farm. That's what I would do. All right, y'all, we are after. Sorry, I almost cut y'all off prematurely. Excuse me. So thanks for joining me here, friends. I love answering these questions, which is what drives my club, y'all. Inside the membership, I would love to have you come inside. You can comment club here. And you have resources, new resources every month. Those resources are cataloged and stored for you to go back and reference later. And the community over there is pretty amazing. It's a trusted, safe place where we can ask all kinds of questions and not feel dumb or not worried about what somebody's going to say. And it works very much like Facebook. You can post pictures and videos. And it's just really a lot of fun. And I just love meeting up with you every week for the Sewing Circle and then our Flower Farmer Forum. But comment club and check it out. There's a lot of great stuff over there. And down at the bottom of the page, there's some student reviews. And if you are a student, please post a review so other people will know. And just hurry if you're coming, because we're closing membership on Friday at midnight, 12 Eastern time. All right, friends, until we meet again, ciao.